Kristaps Porzingis could officially debut for the Warriors as early as the 19th against the Boston Celtics.
He should be pretty much plug and play, but yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of time. He played 3-on-3 today. He needs to get up and down, play full court. But our training staff feels pretty good about where he is and the possibility that he'll play next week.
A poetic turn of events that could see the Warriors run a double big lineup of both Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis against their former team in Boston. The Warriors enjoy nothing more than destroying teams with their former players, as they've done in the past against the Thunder with Kevin Durant.
Durant ahead of the pack.
Timberwolves with Andrew Wiggins.
Steph thought about that from the hash mark.
And more recently, the Grizzlies with DeAnthony Melton.
Melton comes away. Running with Horford. Melton to the rim to lay it in.
It's almost tradition at this point. Now, while the possibility exists, it's unlikely Kerr starts both Porzingis and Al Horford. Considering it would be his first game back, my guess is KP comes off the Warriors bench for about 20 minutes before eventually ramping up in similar fashion to Melton, whose ACL injury kept him out for a year, and after 24 games, finally saw his way into the Warriors starting lineup, averaging between 23 and 25 minutes a night. Could we see this same type of success with Kristaps Porzingis? The Warriors medical staff have done wonders for perennially injured or injury rehabbing players to allow them to either thrive within Golden State or earn a bigger contract following their stint with the team. Think Sean Livingston in 2014.
Nice bounce pass and Livingston put it down.
Otto Porter Jr. in 2021. Dante DiVincenzo in 2023. And again, DeAnthony Melton in 2024. Kristaps, however, is probably the biggest challenge yet. But if any team in the league can get him right, it's the Warriors. So, what happens if the Warriors figure out a way to keep Porzingis healthy? Check ball. Steve Kerr has gone on record saying that the medical team at the Warriors facility have done their due diligence, and if they didn't think that they could keep Porzingis healthy, they would not have made the trade.
The biggest thing is his health. I don't think we would have made the trade if we didn't think he could be healthy and consistent. Rick and the staff did their due diligence. There's a hope that we can help him get right.
In another interview, Mike Dunleavy Jr. stated that they were aware that Porzingis had trouble staying healthy, but considering they weren't playing Jonathan Kuminga, the worst case scenario is that nothing changes.
We looked into it pretty in depth, where he's been. We feel good about it. On the other end of it, in terms of what we're sending out, we're sending out, a player in a similar boat who struggled to stay on the floor. So we recognize the risk medically, but, it's a risk we're willing to take.
Trading for Porzingis, however, gives them an opportunity they otherwise wouldn't have had with a player that the team has been eyeing for at least a few years. In the last video on the Porzingis trade, we discussed the injuries and issues affecting his availability, and in some general terms, what it would take to keep him healthy. Since then, however, I've decided to take a deeper look at this particular issue and the challenges the medical staff will face in keeping Porzingis available throughout the regular season and the playoffs. So what do we know? We know that postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, aka POTS, is not a career-ending illness. It requires a lot of maintenance with a major focus on dieting and other factors. Additionally, there are a few elite athletes that suffer from the same issue, and some of them have been able to get their best performance following their POTS diagnosis. What this means is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So who are these other elite athletes, and what have they done to perform their best despite what seems to be a debilitating illness for sports athletes? The first and most familiar is Katie Ledecky. If you didn't know, Ledecky is the most decorated U.S. female athlete in American history, and the first American female swimmer to win an individual event in 3 straight Olympiads. She has won 54 medals, 40 gold, 11 silver, and 3 bronze. 30 of which were won following her POTS diagnosis in 2015 at 18 years old. She's also broken 17 world records, 11 or 12 of which were won since that time as well. This goes to show that with proper management, athletes can still perform at the highest level. But there is still one problem. Ledecky being a swimmer means that POTS affects her much differently than it does KP. One of the major differences is that while swimming, your body is horizontal as opposed to being upright when playing basketball. So inherently, swimming as an activity counteracts the effects of POTS. This happens because POTS tends to flare up while standing due to the added pressure from the heart having to pump blood from your lower extremities back up to the brain. Patients tend to have lightheadedness and quick onset of tiredness, varicose veins, and discoloration in their legs due to the blood pooling in their calves. Those suffering from POTS will use clothing compression such as tights or compression sleeves on their legs in order to keep this from happening. Along with not having to overcome the higher pressure from standing, swimmers also get compression from the water pressure to better manage blood flow and blood pressure. Still, Ledecky has to manage her symptoms by utilizing a high sodium diet by adding extra salt to retain fluids combined with intense hydration to combat the dehydration that comes as a result of POTS. Swimming also functions as her reclined aerobic exercise, which is a crucial aspect of maintaining her health. Now this is quite different from KP's situation. However, there is another athlete who shared her story, Sophie Hilliard, regarding POTS. Hilliard is a pro football player, soccer if they confused you as a child, and this is more in line with what KP would have had to do to manage his symptoms. The major component of Hilliard's diet is the intake of electrolytes combined with exercise and a similar diet to Katie's. The takeaway here is that each individual will have to get a tailored solution, but the framework is pretty clear. The one caveat that remains for Porzingis, however, is that at 7'3", his height comes at a huge price. The taller the individual, the more he's impacted by POTS due to the additional inches sapping blood flow back up to the brain from the lower extremities. His situation is the most serious, but there seems to be a way forward. Of course, there is still the Achilles tendonitis. The closest example that comes to mind is Larry Bird, who managed it for years but lost his explosiveness back in the late 80s to early 90s. That was a long time ago, and medicine has come a long way since then. The other comparison that matters is actually Kevin Durant's, who tore his Achilles at 30, then recovered well enough to still be a dominant force thanks to modern medicine. So an Achilles tear isn't career-ending even on a slim giant. With all this being said, the path for KP is clear. Kristaps has enough outside game, so the risk of over-reliance on his Achilles leading to a rupture is not as bad as others we've seen, such as Jason Tatum's. The good thing is that if it does happen at 31, KP is in almost the same boat as KD and could potentially have a lot of good years left. This means that the long-term outlook has enough positives, and if the goal is to try to compete again next year with Steph and Jimmy, the addition of a healthy KP would be enough to take the Warriors over the top. Let's assume for a moment that Rick Celebrini's team is able to manage KP's illness and injury. What are we getting from Porzingis this season? We'd have to imagine a lineup of Steph, Melton, Moody, Santos, and Porzingis, with Draymond Green and Al Horford coming off the bench. We already know what we have with Steph Curry. Melton is the perfect two to play next to Steph in the backcourt as the Warriors' point of attack defender. With Moody shooting at 40% from distance on the season, Santos at 43% his last 7 games, and Porzingis stretching the floor at the 5, this gives the Warriors ultimate floor spacing and allowing already above average 3-point shooters to take practice shots night in and night out. There are no particular defensive weaknesses in this starting lineup, however. If there is anyone that can counter offensively when they're being hunted defensively, it's Steph Curry. A healthy KP is as close as you'll get to the spacing of the KD era with the addition of rim protection. While he doesn't have KD's shot creation, he still keeps the ball moving. Hence Kerr's comments on KP being a plug-and-play fit into the Warriors' system.
So it's not like you have to, establish a new offense or to put in any different, sets and play calls and stuff. He should be pretty much plug and play, but.
No one can argue against the fact that a healthy KP makes the Warriors a much better team in terms of fit and playing style. The aforementioned lineup gives the Warriors the best chance at making a strong playoff run, and while there's no chance Jimmy returns, the Warriors could be a dark horse candidate. While KP's diagnosis came in the middle of last year's playoffs, a promising sign is that he did play in 11 games. He struggled through it, but that was before it was known what he was dealing with. The Warriors, now having the knowledge and expertise, could get the best of Kristaps in this year's playoffs. While the floor is lower with KP following the Jonathan Kuminga trade, as long as Steve Kerr maintains his philosophy, the team has a higher ceiling. KP fits easily next to Draymond if Kerr is unwilling to move Draymond from the starting lineup. In a recent interview with 95.7, when asked about Draymond's recent performance, Kerr was quick to mention that Steph Curry cures all sorts of spacing issues, and while that's true, he neglected to comment on Draymond's impact as an individual.
The Warrior defense got better when Draymond Green went off of the floor. What's happening with him, to not have him in at the end of games and have the defense kind of tick up?
Well, it's a lot different without Steph. Losing Steph impacts our offense in some pretty dramatic ways, and it really affects how we have to put the five-man combo on the floor.
Never mind the 7 turnovers Green committed against the Grizzlies that I'm assuming Steph Curry would have prevented. It's clear as day that he believes Steph Curry should always play next to Draymond whenever possible, but that backpack gets heavier by the day. This means that once Curry's healthy, the Warriors are likely to pivot away from Santos and play Draymond next to Horford, who's now replacing Draymond at the 5. Alternatively, and not surprisingly, KP gives Steve Kerr the flexibility to keep Draymond in that starting and closing role on the floor with 3 different players at center who space the floor. Hopefully that stops the turnovers. Hopefully common sense takes precedence and the Warriors continue to ride with Santos even when KP returns. The Warriors are only a few games back of a top 6th seed in the West, so if they play their cards right, the Warriors could easily make the playoffs. The margin is thin, however, and one mistake could cost the team a guaranteed spot. While the outlook isn't championship contention, the outlook in 2022 wasn't championship contention either. But let me know if you guys agree. What does a healthy Porzingis do for this team? Is this idea even feasible? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish.